Manager Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, great to have you here.
Thank you, Allison.
Who's been more transparent about their health, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump?
As we know from this past weekend, clearly Donald Trump. I mean, we saw Hillary Clinton with our own two eyes struggling the other day. We certainly hope, Mr. Trump and I and our entire campaign certainly hope that she's well.
And she has said now that she was suffering from pneumonia. She got the diagnosis on Friday. This is all Mr. Trump has released about his health. 4 paragraphs, as you know, from his gastroenterologist, who says that Mr. Trump his health is astonishingly excellent. It also says that all of his latest medical examinations and tests were only positive results, which of course is funny because that means something's wrong. But that's not what he meant. So how can this be considered transparent?
Wow, you can laugh all you want at the medical report, but as far as I can see, there are 2 major party candidates running for president, and only one of them has pneumonia and lied about it, especially to the press, because she always thinks that she has. She treats you all like second-class citizens, won't have a press conference, and when she pretends to have a press avail, I'm going to be uplifting and aspirational now, then goes on to attack tens of millions of Americans the very next day.
But about health.
And then,
I mean, this is
we
not
all
a medical
saw her by the
report.
van. But Allison, this is what I expect from the Clinton campaign. I really don't expect it from journalists. We're talking about Hillary Clinton and her pneumonia and what happened on 9/11, which we all saw with our own two eyes. And we're talking and it takes us about 10 words to get to Donald Trump. Well, so he had a physical last week.
Yes, and will he be releasing the results of
Yes, he said he'll release them probably this week or whenever the doctor has the report prepared.
What exactly will he be releasing? His entire medical history or just the results of the last checkup?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what he won't be releasing. He won't be releasing the fact that he had pneumonia for 2 days and lied about it.
Lied or didn't disclose? Is there a difference?
Well, I guess if we're talking about Hillary Clinton, lie and didn't disclose is the same. It is so different, right? It's always parsing the words. I mean, excuse me, respectfully, one person is off the campaign trail right now. We wish her well. We're glad that she told Anderson Cooper last night that she's feeling better, that she expects to rejoin the campaign trail. We'll see her at the debates. But the idea that we shift immediately to the person who is keeping the most punishing schedule of any presidential candidate, it's unbelievable. He'll be in 7 or 8 swing states this week, 5 rallies. Just yesterday was in Baltimore and Asheville. Today he's on his way to Iowa and then Pennsylvania. Tomorrow's Ohio and another state. So in other words, Ohio and Michigan tomorrow. In other words, we can talk about that, but let's talk about stamina and energy. Let's talk about who's actually taking the case directly to voters and who's not. I mean, the idea that she did not have the worst 48 hours of her campaign and that people would cover up for her, I think is frankly astonishing.
Well, you're his campaign manager, which is why we're asking you questions about Donald Trump. We have people on from the Clinton camp and her surrogates, and we ask about her.
And they talk about Donald Trump.
You know, look, for stamina, I mean, in terms of if you're comparing stamina, they both keep up a punishing
I'm just talking
pace.
about his. No, I'm sorry. Look at their public schedules. That is simply not true. She attends many fundraisers. In fact, that's why she was going to California. The minute Donald Trump dares to step in a state, Allison, that's either overly red or overly blue, the media, including CNN, run all these ridiculous stories about why is he in a non-swing state? Is he really running for president? She goes to California, to Hollywood to raise money. She did it twice, and she's supposed to be there now. And San Francisco did it a couple weeks ago. Then she went to the Hamptons. Then she went to Martha Vineyard, none of which are swing states. But that's okay. Is she taking the case to the voters? Where are her rallies? Pensacola, Florida last Friday. 12,500 people inside, about 8, maybe 10,000 people waiting outside just to get in.
Let's talk about Donald Trump's tax records. When can we expect to see them?
When his lawyer and his accountants tell him that he should release them when he's no longer under audit. He's made that very clear.
Has Donald Trump, or will he release anything from the IRS, a letter from the IRS proving that he's under audit?
I'm sorry?
Will Donald Trump release anything from the IRS proving that he's under audit?
I don't know. Why? In other words, why are you calling him a liar?
Well, we're taking his word for it.
Are you calling him a liar? And we're taking Hillary Clinton's word for it that she was overheated and didn't have pneumonia, or that she's going to be aspirational uplifting, or she's going to start talking to the press again. I mean, seriously, we're running against a Clinton and we're going to challenge someone's veracity.
The founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, is offering to give veterans groups $5 million if Donald Trump releases his tax records. That sounds like a great deal for veterans. That's obviously a cause close to Mr. Trump's heart. Will this be an impetus for him, despite, we know what his lawyers have said, but the IRS has said that he can release it. They will not punish him. Lots of tax attorneys have said he can release it. He will not be punished. Will he release it now, given this motivation?
No, but I hope that man thinks so much of the veterans that he would give them $5 million whether or not Mr. Trump defies the advice of his lawyer and his accountant and releases his taxes. And I also would love to tell you, Allison, that I've looked at the CNN poll, I've looked at everybody's polling, I look at our own polling. I just can't find where this is a burning issue to most of Americans. It goes right back to what Hillary Clinton said. To be so dismissive of tens of millions of Americans also means that people around here and elsewhere think that somehow the issues that are vexing Americans are not economy, jobs, terrorism, healthcare, immigration, education, exactly what they tell the CNN pollsters, exactly what we hear in our own polling. Why don't we have a discussion about that? We want to talk about taxes. What will our tax burden be under President Donald Trump? He actually has gone out and given a 4 or 5 point middle-class tax relief plan. We'll be talking more about tax reform tonight in Pennsylvania, actually a very exciting aspect of it, and then he'll be at the Economic Club here in New York on Thursday.
The issue goes to transparency.
I mean, where is she?
Yeah, look, the issue goes to transparency, and if voters can bank on what they are voting on and knowing your candidate. For instance, Mike Pence, VP nominee, said yesterday that Donald Trump has given away tens of millions of dollars to charity, but investigations can't find his personal money that is in the tens of millions. Do you stand by the tens of millions number?
Donald Trump has been incredibly generous over the course of his life.
With his own money?
With his own money and his foundation's money, which is his money.
No, the foundation's money are other people giving to his foundation.
Okay, but he's been incredibly generous. I mean, are we going to actually question that Hillary Clinton and her husband made almost $250 million, and we're supposed to just question, and that's okay. It's okay that.
But why is it bad to be a billionaire? Since Donald Trump has touted it too, why is that a shortcoming?
Excuse me? It's not a shortcoming. I'm a capitalist. I just wish that she would respect the hardworking men and women of this country who she thinks are a bunch of uneducated rubes coming down from the hills with no teeth and long fingernails, and just, they need to be schooled by this precious woman in New York at Cipriani talking to people who are laughing at Americans. Do we really want a president of the United States who laughs at Americans? I don't. I find it disgraceful. I grew up around laborers, and I respect their hard work every day, and I think her insulting tens of millions of Americans just because they don't have a Yale law degree like she does, just because their husband doesn't make $500,000 to give some speech for 45 minutes somewhere, just because they can't give mineral rights to their friends in faraway countries when they are Secretary of State. And the other part of her comment was also offensive. Let's talk about the other half of the half, Allison, saying that people are, quote, desperate for change. Boy, do I agree with her. Very desperate for change, feeling left behind economically. But who's been in charge of the economy for almost 8 years?
Well, Donald Trump, part of why people are calling for him to release his taxes is so that we do know how much he himself has given to charity. Will you or the campaign release exactly what that number is? And the reason I ask, why would you doubt it?
I doubt it because this is like badgering. In other words, I don't see it as journalism. I see it as badgering. In other words, we've had this conversation so many times on so many different networks, and yet we're not having conversation about what the middle-class tax relief would actually mean for people's wage stagnation, a chronic problem of almost 2 decades.
Well, we do have that conversation at other times, but how is it badgering to just ask for the evidence of a claim? If Mike Pence is saying tens of millions of dollars from Donald Trump, shouldn't we see the evidence?
Did anybody ask Hillary Clinton for evidence that she was overheated and dehydrated? Is anybody asking her for evidence of why she thinks she's so precious and special that she would have the Secret Service break protocol at Ground Zero on Sunday, Allison, and take her to her daughter's apartment rather than a hospital? I mean, who are these people that there's always a different set of rules for them and we're always just supposed to look the other way? This network and other networks were presumptively protecting her and saying that she was fine. She was overheated and dehydrated.
Anderson Cooper got the exclusive with her last night and pressed her on all of these things.
She had to clean up her husband trying to explain stuff. It didn't go very well.
I just don't buy that claim that is coming from the Trump campaign. We ask lots of questions of the Clinton campaign, but when you're here representing the Trump campaign, we ask these questions because you also can't just make claims and expect everyone to just accept it. So the idea that
I think Donald Trump's a very generous man, and
yes, and what's the evidence?
To have employed tens of thousands of people from many different countries, both genders certainly, from all walks of life, over the years.
Sure, but that's not charity. I mean, employment is not charity.
It's pretty darn impressive, and it certainly isn't the political resume that his opponent has. And I would just respectfully say, because we love to play a parlor game back at the Trump Tower at campaign headquarters, it takes the average Clinton surrogate or campaign staffer 10 seconds or 10 words to talk about Donald Trump when you ask them a question about Hillary Clinton. And I can't blame them. If she were my candidate, I wouldn't want to talk much about her either.
But
She's
you
got
are
these dual
talking a lot
problems.
about
You're darn
her.
right, so at least we hear about her today. Transparency and trustworthiness are her two-pillar problems, and she did nothing the whole last week. I think she had a terrible week, but she certainly had a terrible weekend. And no, not because she's sick, because let me repeat, we're glad that she said she's feeling better. We hope she's fully recovered and she comes back to the campaign trail soon. But why all the furtiveness? Why the concealment? What's the big deal just to say, I have pneumonia and I'm on antibiotics? And by the way, why didn't she tell her running mate? What an embarrassment that was for him to come out. Tuesday, I read at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon in The Hill, he was saying she doesn't need to apologize for her comment. And was he not told that she had pneumonia, she was on antibiotics? It's just so odd that they can't let the running mate know what's going on. Why is that?
Should Donald Trump's running mate, Mike Pence, have said that David Duke is deplorable?
He should, sure, so that he doesn't get headlines saying Mike Pence will not say Donald Trump is deplorable, and people can get satisfied. But can people play the entire clip? He clearly said on your network, and thank you for playing the entire clip, we don't want to support, we don't like what he stands for or people stand for in the KKK. But there is this, he's got another point, there is this certain obsession about constantly raising issues and raising people that are not part of our campaign, that we have said, and Reince Priebus, the chairman of the Republican National Committee, has said that we don't want his support. We don't want people like that. And it's just, it's unbelievable. Will Hillary Clinton disavow? I mean, does she think Kermit Gosnell is deplorable, who was killing black babies in Philadelphia? Does she think that the people saying that calling cops pigs in a blanket and asking for their death are deplorable? I sure do. And we can go through name after name. I'll sit here between now and Election Day. We won't get to the tens of millions of people Hillary Clinton was referring to by calling them deplorable. She was referring to hardworking men and women. It wasn't a gaffe. Please, print journalists, be a little responsible. Stop calling it a gaffe. She was reading it from prepared remarks, as she always does, and she had said it before.
So, Kellyanne, are you satisfied with the level of transparency from your candidate?
I am. I'm very satisfied with it. And you know what I'm really satisfied with? That he is out there with voters every single day. They expect it. They deserve it. I travel with him once in a while, Allison. The county fair in Ohio last week, he and Governor Pence were together. It was just astonishing to see people 8 and 10 deep at a county fair. Just to be able to say, you know what, they don't say, may I have your autograph? I loved you in The Apprentice. They say, will you save my country? They say, we need jobs in this part of Ohio. They say, thank you so much for making the sacrifice of running. You know what I appreciate? I appreciate that I'm working for a presidential candidate who's not a politician, who did not need to do this. People in politics often run for fame, for fortune, for status, for power. He had all of that. He has all of that. It's a tremendous sacrifice for he and his family to do that. And I think that's really one of the untold stories this year. It's who thinks that they've earned it and they deserve it and it's their turn, and darn it, it's that you better get behind me. I'm qualified. You know what else is a qualification for president? Integrity and transparency, especially when the press is asking you what's wrong.
Yes, we are talking about transparency a lot this morning and demanding it from both candidates.
Thank
Kellyanne,
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
being
me
here. Let's get over to Chris.
All right, let's get the other side. Joining